only light on the highway. I didn't know I was being hunted until I saw headlights where there shouldn't have been any. There's a 24-hour convenience store just outside Flagstaff, Arizona, tucked along a stretch of Route 66 that most tourists miss. It's the last stop before the forest thins out and the road turns into a long, empty ribbon of asphalt. Locals joke that if you're there after midnight, it's either because you're desperate or because something has gone wrong. I guess that night, it was both. I'm a software developer, and my sleep schedule has never respected the sun. My brain doesn't fully wake up until most people are winding down. Midnight to 3 in the morning is my sweet spot. That's when ideas click, problems unravel, and distractions disappear. The downside is that hunger hits fast and hard, like someone flipped a switch. One minute I'm fine, the next I'm dizzy and irritable, staring at my screen like it personally betrayed me. That night, it was just after 2. My apartment was silent except for the hum of my laptop fan. I'd been coding for hours, deep enough into the work that I didn't even notice the time slipping by. Then my stomach growled so loudly it startled me. I shut everything down, grabbed my keys, and headed out. The drive takes about 20 minutes if you're not driving like a saint. The road is technically a highway, but it feels more like a forgotten access route. No streetlights, no houses, just dark pines, occasional reflectors, and the sense that if something happened out there, no one would know for a while. The store itself was glowing like a ship at sea when I pulled in. Fluorescent lights, a couple of dusty pumps, no other cars. I went inside, ordered a sandwich at the counter, and started wandering the aisles to kill time. I have ADHD, and standing still makes my skin crawl. Pacing helps. That's when I noticed him. At first, my brain refused to process what I was seeing. At the far end of the store, near the wall of refrigerated drinks, someone was sitting on the floor. Legs folded, back slightly hunched, facing the glass doors like they were watching something inside them. I almost walked past without thinking, then stopped cold. People don't sit like that in convenience stores. Not unless something is wrong. He was wearing a dark tan jacket and faded jeans. That's all I could see from where I stood. No movement, no phone, just stillness. I told myself he was tired, or drunk, or waiting for someone. But curiosity got the better of me, and I decided to get a look at his face. I took a few steps down a parallel aisle, pretending to browse. My plan was simple: peek around the corner, get a quick look, then disappear before it turned into something awkward. The moment I leaned out, he snapped his head around. The movement was so sudden it felt violent. I froze, one hand still hovering near a rack of chips. His eyes were wide, too wide, not startled wide, but stretched, like he hadn't blinked in a long time. His lower lip trembled uncontrollably, and his jaw looked tight, like he was clenching his teeth. Sweat beaded along his hairline, even though the store was cool. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't angry. He was empty. The stare landed on me and stayed there. No expression, no curiosity, just locked. It felt like being noticed by something that didn't fully understand what it was looking at. After what felt like a full minute, I looked away and walked quickly toward the counter. My sandwich wasn't ready yet. I stood there, heart pounding, angled so I could see the aisle where he'd been sitting. He never came out. When my food was finally handed to me, I didn't hesitate. I paid, nodded at the cashier, and left without looking back. I told myself I was overreacting, that weird people exist, that nothing had actually happened. That lie lasted about 10 seconds. I was pulling back onto Route 66 when movement caught my eye. Someone burst out of the store and sprinted across the parking lot. I recognized the jacket immediately. He moved fast, almost frantically, and jumped into a dark pickup truck parked near the trees. The engine roared to life. I merged onto the highway and drove. A few minutes passed. The store lights vanished behind me, swallowed by the forest. The road was empty again. No traffic. No sound except my tires and the low rush of wind. Then I saw headlights. They appeared in my rearview mirror, faint at first, then growing. Fast. I slowed instinctively, expecting police lights. They never came. The truck closed the distance, its high beams flashing. That's when I recognized the shape, the height, the way it moved. It was him. My chest tightened. I hit the gas. The speedometer climbed. 80, 90. The truck stayed with me. It honked. The lights flashed again. Honk. Aggressive and insistent. I considered pulling over. I considered calling someone. I did neither. At 100 miles per hour, fear becomes physical. Your hands shake, your thoughts fracture. Every instinct screams that you're about to die. I swerved into the right lane, hoping he'd pass. He didn't. He matched me, then drifted closer. I started to slow, aiming for the shoulder. That's when he hit me. The impact jolted my car sideways. I fought the wheel, barely keeping control. There was no doubt anymore. This wasn't road rage. This was intent. He came at me again. I swerved left and slammed the brakes. The truck shot past, fishtailed, and disappeared off the road into the dark field beyond the shoulder. I didn't stop. I drove all the way home, shaking, called the police, and gave my statement. I still don't know who he was or why he chose me. I just know that some nights when I drive that road, I don't look in the mirror anymore. If I had been 5 seconds slower, I wouldn't be here telling this story. This happened in the summer of 2022 when I was 26 and working a job that never really let you feel safe. On paper, I was a logistics contractor. In reality, I was a long-haul delivery driver for a startup trying to muscle into markets Amazon didn't want to touch. Remote towns, half-paved roads, places where cell service flickers in and out like a bad memory. The company paid well enough to justify the risk. I drove a cargo SUV loaded with refurbished electronics, custom PC parts, and sealed hardware shipments. Routes changed constantly. One week I'd be bouncing between Nevada mining towns. The next cutting through stretches of desert where the only sign of life was a rusted fence or a burned-out trailer. Most of my drives happened at night. That wasn't by choice. It was just how the schedules worked. Less traffic, tighter deadlines, and fewer questions asked. I didn't mind it. I grew up on road trips, sleeping in the back seat while my parents drove cross-country. Long, quiet highways felt familiar. This particular night, I was finishing a run from Moab, Utah, down toward Page, Arizona, following Route 191. If you've never driven that road after dark, it's hard to explain how empty it feels. Red rock cliffs during the day, total blackness at night. No shoulder in some spots, no towns for miles. It was just after 1 in the morning. I had a podcast playing quietly and both hands on the wheel. I remember thinking how still everything felt, like the world had paused. That's when I saw the car. A small red hatchback sat crooked on the gravel shoulder, hazard lights blinking weakly. The hood was down. The driver's door was closed. At first, I slowed out of habit. Then, I told myself not to stop. You hear stories. Everyone does. And Route 191 is not the place you want to gamble on your instincts being wrong. I was already passing when I noticed movement. A woman stepped into the edge of my headlights, waving one arm overhead. She held her phone up with the other, like she was trying to catch a signal. She looked young, mid-20s maybe, alone. I kept driving. Then guilt hit me hard. I thought about my sister, my girlfriend, what I'd hoped someone would do if they were stranded out there. I checked my mirrors, no other cars, no headlights behind me. I slowed and pulled ahead about 50 yards, then stopped. I cracked the passenger window just enough to talk. She rushed over immediately and grabbed the door handle. It was locked. She knocked on the glass, breathing fast, eyes wide. She said her car had died and her phone wasn't working. She needed a ride to the nearest gas station. Her voice shook, but not in a clean way. It was jittery, slightly slurred. I hesitated. What made me unlock the door wasn't bravery. It was overconfidence. I had a legally owned handgun secured under my dash. I told myself I was prepared, that I was in control. She climbed in fast and muttered a rushed thank you without making eye contact. The inside of my car suddenly felt smaller. I asked what happened to her vehicle. She dodged the question and told me to drive. I asked again, same result. She kept glancing toward the road behind us, twisting her hands in her lap. Every alarm in my body started going off. I was about to tell her to get out when I glanced back at her car. A man stepped out from behind it. He had been crouched low, hidden from the road. Tall, broad shoulders, hoodie pulled tight around his face. He stared straight at my headlights. Then another figure appeared farther up the road. He stood directly in my lane, holding something long and dark in both hands. A pipe, a bat. I couldn't tell. That's when my instincts finally overrode my stupidity. I floored it. The woman screamed and twisted in her seat, looking back toward them. She reached down into her purse, digging frantically. I didn't wait to find out what she was grabbing. I pulled my gun and rested it on the steering wheel where she could see it. "Don't move," I said. She froze. She didn't cry, didn't argue, just went completely still, eyes locked forward. The men vanished behind us as the road curved and the darkness swallowed everything. For the next 30 minutes, no one spoke. Her breathing was shallow, controlled, like someone trying not to be noticed. I kept my speed steady and my eyes on the road. The nearest town was Mexican Hat, and I had no intention of stopping anywhere smaller. When we finally reached a lit gas station with 2 semi-trucks parked out front, I pulled in hard and stopped near the pumps. I told her to get out. She refused. She said she was scared, that she didn't know those men, that she just needed help. I leaned across her, opened the door, and forced her out. She stumbled backward and fell onto the concrete, shouting something I couldn't understand. One of the truckers started jogging over. I didn't wait. I drove to another station, checked the passenger seat, and found what she left behind. A burner phone battery and a sealed pack of zip ties. I threw them away and never reported a thing. Because sometimes surviving means walking away before anyone asks questions. I still remember the exact moment my stomach dropped, because it happened before I understood why I was afraid. This was about 3 years ago, during a cross-country drive my husband and I took from Salt Lake City, Utah, to Savannah, Georgia. We weren't in a rush. That was the whole point of the trip. My husband had planned a scenic route that zigzagged through places he'd always wanted to see. National parks, small towns, stretches of road most people just fly over. The downside was distance, long, empty highways. Hours without seeing another car, especially once the sun went down. One of the loneliest stretches we drove through was western Kansas, along US Route 400. During the day, it's endless farmland. Flat, open, almost peaceful. At night, it turns into something else entirely. Just darkness and the feeling that you could disappear out there without anyone noticing. We'd been driving since morning. Sometime around sunset, I fell asleep in the passenger seat. I'm one of those people who can sleep anywhere if the car is moving. I don't even remember closing my eyes. When I woke up, it was dark. The car was slowing, and the headlights swept across a small gas station off the highway. It looked old. 1 building, 2 pumps, a flickering sign that buzzed faintly. My husband said he needed to fill up and grab snacks. I realized I should probably use the bathroom while we had the chance. Who knew when the next stop would be? I didn't bring my phone or my purse. That decision still makes me cringe. Inside, the store smelled like hot oil and dust. The cashier was an older man with gray hair and glasses perched low on his nose. He didn't look up when I walked in. The bathroom was down a narrow hallway near the back, partially hidden by shelves of cleaning supplies. The hallway light flickered. I hesitated for half a second, then kept walking. As I pushed open the women's restroom door, I almost collided with someone coming out of one of the stalls. She startled me so badly that I gasped. The woman looked wrong. Her hair was gray but messy, clumped together like it hadn't been washed in a long time. She wore foam flip-flops that slapped softly against the tile when she moved, and wrapped around her body was this thick, oversized coat, purple and green, padded like something meant for a Midwest winter. It was August, in Kansas. At night, sure, but still warm. She was holding a Tide plastic grocery bag in one hand. We stood there staring at each other. Not the polite, awkward kind of eye contact you make with a stranger. This was different. Her eyes didn't flick away. They stayed locked on me, unblinking, like she was waiting for something. I gave her a small nod and tried to step past her. She didn't move right away. Finally, she shifted just enough to let me through. I assumed she'd leave, that she'd walk out, and that would be it. She didn't. Instead, she turned and followed me toward the sinks. She didn't wash her hands. She didn't look in the mirror. She just stood there, arms hanging loosely at her sides, facing me. The silence was unbearable. I went into the nearest stall and locked it, my heart starting to race. As soon as I sat down, regret washed over me. No phone, no way to text my husband, no way to call for help. I told myself I was being dramatic. People are weird. That doesn't mean they're dangerous. I waited, listening. After a minute or two, I heard the soft slap of flip-flops moving away. Then the bathroom door opened and slammed shut. Relief flooded me. I stayed seated for a bit longer, just to be safe. That's when I heard breathing. It wasn't mine. It was slow, deliberate, coming from somewhere near the entrance of the bathroom. I froze. The realization hit me all at once. She had faked leaving. She must have opened and slammed the door to make it sound like she left, then stayed inside, standing silently near the exit. I didn't move. I barely breathed. Seconds stretched into minutes. My legs started to ache from sitting so still. My heart hammered so loudly I was convinced she could hear it. Then the door opened again and closed. The breathing stopped. I waited longer this time, longer than felt reasonable. Just when I thought I might be safe, I heard a sudden, sharp gasp, like someone had been holding their breath for a long time. Then the door opened and closed again. That was the moment fear truly took over. She had done it twice, which meant she could do it again. I had no idea what she wanted, but whatever it wasn't normal. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't coincidence. This was deliberate. I couldn't sit there forever. I unlocked the stall as quietly as I could and stepped out, fully expecting to see her standing there. The bathroom was empty. I washed my hands in record time and rushed out into the main store. The bright lights felt harsh after the dim hallway. I scanned the aisles, trying to spot her. She wasn't inside. A large man was checking out at the counter, so I lingered near a rack of snacks until he finished. When he walked out, I followed closely behind him, using him as a buffer. The second I stepped outside, my stomach dropped again. She was there, standing just off to the side of the entrance, partially hidden by the wall. She wasn't staring blankly anymore. She was glaring. In her hand was something metallic, short, reflective. A knife. She was crouched slightly, her body angled toward me like she was ready to move. Every instinct screamed at me to run. Before I could react, she turned and disappeared around the side of the building. I didn't wait to see where she went. I ran to the car and threw myself inside. My husband looked startled and asked what took me so long. I told him to drive. I said I'd explain later. As we pulled away, I looked back. She stood at the corner of the building, watching us leave. I told my husband everything once we were back on the highway. He was upset that I hadn't brought my phone, and honestly, he was right. I don't use roadside bathrooms anymore, and I never will again. The van that waited. I don't stop at highway rest areas after dark anymore. Not for coffee, not for the bathroom, not even if my eyes are burning and my hands are shaking from exhaustion. There's nothing on this planet that could convince me to pull into one at night again. This happened in January of 2020, when I was 24 and working a job that sounded simple until you actually did it. I was a courier for a small automotive logistics company based out of Des Moines, Iowa. My job was to move parts between cities across the Midwest. Alternators, transmissions, sealed crates of specialty components, usually overnight, usually alone. The work was monotonous but paid well. Long drives, no boss breathing down your neck. Just you, the road, and whatever you were hauling. I liked it mostly, until I didn't. That night, I was heading east on Interstate 80, bound for Davenport. The run was supposed to take about 3.5 hours. I left just after 8 in the evening, figuring I'd be back before midnight. But winter had other plans. By 10:30, the temperature had dropped hard. The sky was pitch black, the kind of darkness that swallows your headlights after a few dozen feet. Snow from earlier in the day had frozen into patches of dull ice along the shoulders. The road was quiet except for the occasional semi-roaring past in the opposite direction. That's when the fatigue hit. Not the slow, manageable kind, the sudden kind. My eyelids started to droop. My vision blurred at the edges. I caught myself drifting slightly within the lane and corrected hard. That scared me enough to look for a place to stop. A blue sign appeared ahead. Rest area, 1 mile. I told myself I'd pull in, stretch my legs, splash some water on my face, grab a drink from the vending machine. 5 minutes. Then back on the road. The rest area was small, just a brick building with bathrooms, a few dim streetlights, and maybe a dozen parking spots. It looked abandoned. No cars pulling in, no one walking around, except for one vehicle. An old white cargo van sat at the far end of the lot, parked well away from the building. No logos, no windows on the sides. Lights off. I noticed it, but I didn't think much of it. I parked under one of the lights closer to the building, shut off the engine, locked the doors, and went inside. The restroom smelled faintly of cleaning solution and damp concrete. The heater rattled loudly, struggling against the cold. I leaned over the sink and splashed cold water on my face, letting it drip down my neck. As I straightened up and looked into the mirror, I thought I heard the door open behind me. I turned. No one was there. I stood still, listening. Just the hum of the heater. I told myself it was nothing and finished up quickly. When I stepped back outside, something felt off immediately. The van's headlights were on. The engine wasn't running. No sound. Just the lights, bright and white, aimed toward the building. I was certain they hadn't been on before. A chill crawled up my spine. I unlocked my truck fast, climbed in, and started the engine. As I pulled out of the space and headed toward the exit, the van's headlights shut off. Just like that. I told myself someone inside had accidentally bumped the switch. Maybe they were sleeping. Maybe they were waiting for someone. I didn't stop to think any deeper. I merged back onto I-80 and drove. For about 5 minutes, everything was fine. Then I checked my mirror. 2 headlights appeared in the distance behind me. At first, I assumed it was just another car, but as it got closer, I recognized the shape immediately. Boxy, tall. The white van. It was gaining on me fast. My heart rate spiked. I was already going about 75, but the van closed the gap until it was riding my bumper. I could barely see its grille in my mirror. Then it switched lanes and pulled up beside me. The driver rolled his window halfway down. I couldn't see his face clearly, just a shadow under a baseball cap. He motioned for me to roll my window down. I didn't. He pointed toward the bed of my truck like he was trying to warn me about something. At first, I almost believed him. Then I remembered something important. There was nothing in my truck bed. It was completely empty. That's when I realized he wasn't trying to help me. I kept my eyes forward and my foot steady on the gas. The van honked, drifted closer to my lane. I swerved slightly to keep distance. Suddenly, the van sped up, cut in front of me, and slammed on the brakes. I barely avoided rear-ending it. Before I could react, it veered onto the shoulder and came to a full stop. I flew past it, heart pounding, and stayed in the left lane, pushing close to 90. For a moment, I thought it was over. Then the van pulled back onto the highway. What followed was the longest 20 miles of my life. Sometimes it would hang back until I thought I'd lost it. Then, out of nowhere, it would surge forward and appear right behind me again. No lights, no horn, just there, watching. I knew I couldn't outrun it forever. I needed witnesses. Lights, people. A green sign appeared ahead. Truck stop, 5 miles. I took the exit without hesitation. The truck stop was a blessing. Bright lights, diesel pumps, several semis parked in a row. A diner glowing through wide windows. I pulled in and parked directly under a floodlight near the pumps. The van didn't follow immediately. I waited. 2 minutes passed. Then it rolled slowly down the exit ramp and into the lot. I didn't wait to see where it parked. I got out of my truck and walked straight into the diner. The bell above the door jingled. A woman behind the counter looked up. She was probably in her 50s, hair pulled back, wearing an apron. I told her a van had been following me for the last half hour. She must have seen the fear on my face because she immediately waved over a trucker sitting at the counter. The guy stood up, big build, gray beard, flannel shirt. We walked back outside together. The van was idling at the far end of the lot, facing my truck. The trucker squinted at it and muttered, "Yeah, that ain't right." He told me to go back inside. I watched through the window as he walked toward the van. I couldn't hear what he said, but I saw him lean down and look inside. A few seconds later, the van reversed sharply, turned, and sped out of the lot, disappearing back onto the highway. The trucker came back shaking his head. He said there were 2 men inside, both wearing hoodies, both staring straight ahead. Neither said a word. I stayed in that diner for nearly an hour. When I finally went back to my truck, I checked it carefully. Everything looked fine at first. Then I noticed 2 dirty handprints smeared across the tailgate, right where someone would grab if they were trying to open it. I finished the drive with my eyes glued to the mirror. I quit that job a few months later. Now, when I travel long distances, I plan everything ahead of time. I fill up before dark. I bring snacks. I stop only at crowded, well-lit places. Because I know, without a doubt, that if I had rolled my window down or pulled over when that van signaled me, I wouldn't be here telling this story.